welcome to the AUC News Bulletin. This is your host Rana Abdelwahab. Today we will be discussing Students' Athletics Committee meeting as well as the Theater Film Club hosting the famous Muhammad Ramadan, and last but not least AUC News Athletics website. Coming up later today, we will have an interview with Mustafa Siddiqui from the Robots Winning Tournament to discuss the victory of his team. Last week, the AUC Student Athlete Committee had a meeting to discuss their team's needs and changes for this year. On Wednesday 2nd, SAC had their first meeting to discuss needs and changes since the Student Athlete Committee was created to facilitate the lives of athletes in the university. Each team chooses two of the athletes to be their representatives to communicate their inquiries to the athletes department.
أول ميتنج في السنة دي على الساك بنقابل الناس أولا الناس اللي داخلة جديد ساك من الفرق التانية، وكنا بنتكلم في البلان بتاعنا السنة دي هيبقى ايه والايفنتس اللي احنا المفروض هنهلب في الأورجنايزيشن بتاعتها.
One of the major problems athletes face are having to skip their midterms because of their abroad tournaments. SAC representatives communicated this to the department and offered a solution by asking the athletics department to make a policy allowing students to have makeup exams. TFC hosted Egyptian actor and singer Muhammad Ramadan in the Hall of Fame event with the aid of Tariq El-Biari, the founder of TFC. Hall of Fame is the event that celebrities come to talk about their road to fame. Ramadan kicked off the event with one of his songs, Number One, to which the crowd interacted with his performance by singing along with him, shouting his name and shouting the lyrics.
تقريبا محمد وصل متفق معاه بقالنا سنة ونص، يعني من قبل ما أنا أصلا أجي. طبعا يعني النيجوشيشن معاه ابتدت توصل لحاجة في السمر.
Who puts limits to his ambition puts limits to his potential, said Ramadan, starting the discussion. Ramadan finished this talk with performing one of his latest songs, Mafia, while taking pictures with the audience. On October 8, 2019, the AUC Athletics Department has announced that they have finally launched their all-new American-style AUC Athlete website. This is the first in AUC, as the Athletics Department deemed to give more attention to their deserving athletes. Director of Athletics Robert Riasso and Assistant Director Muhammad Arafa have been working on this launch for months and finally released it on the 8th of October. The website will consist of all the information needed on AUC athletics, including events, upcoming games, tournaments, awards, and rosters. With this being said, both men's and women's sports sections have been included in the website.
One of my major projects when I got here was to develop an athletic website. I was shocked when I went on our athletic website and it didn't represent our student athletes, didn't represent the school. We had no idea what sports we played, we had no idea what we did. The only thing you could do was find out how to get into the gym, where the gym hours were. So we worked very hard, and our media communications person, Mena, has done a tremendous job with the AUCTV communications, putting the website together.
AUC athletes are very excited about this website, as they will have the chance to shine and have their accomplishment registered for the AUC community and the world to see. Coming up next, we will have our guest, Mustafa Siddiqui, to talk about the robotics tournament. Hello and welcome to our show. Here with us today is the robotics competition winner Mustafa Siddiqui to tell us about his team's victory and process of the competition. Welcome, Mustafa.
Hello.
Can you please tell us, how did you find about the competition?
We found out about it as part of a mechanical system course. Our professor basically introduced it. He told us about the competition and how one of his teams 10 years ago went to that competition. And they applied, and the project that they applied with was actually the same project that they used for the mechanical systems course.
Okay, how was the AUC supportive, in this?
We used the labs, so the workshop, the mechanical engineering workshop. We got so much help from the robotics team, whenever we needed components or anything. we applied to the undergraduate research for a fund, and they gave us they funded almost 50% of our trip, which was very supportive, of course.
Okay. What issues did your team face?
So we had a problem when we got there. Of course, obviously the whole process was terrible, but when we got to the US, we had a few problems with our motors and everything. Some of them were fried because of TSA inspection or whatever. So we had to get new motors in a couple of days, and given how the competition was in Anaheim, very close to Disneyland, so this is an area where you don't find many electronic stores that buy that kind of stuff, that sell that kind of stuff. So it's it was a hassle to get everything together and make sure it was working.
And you can tell us like, how was your parents also supportive like in this?
So I was, for the first 2 months of this summer, I was in Spain for a summer abroad course, and so when I got back, I was not planning to travel. Like, I was not planning to have my parents go through, supporting my trip to go there to the U.S. because we applied on such short notice to the fund from the from the university that it was very, very difficult to get the money before we traveled. So my parents definitely just they were like, just go for it. It doesn't matter. It's
okay. So you can also tell us like, what problems did you personally like face and stuff? So
for me, it was because I was abroad for most of the summer. I had to do most of the work on the computer, and I could not see. So the rest of the team was working so hard here in Egypt, and I was doing most of the work on the computer, sending them stuff, and they'd have to manufacture it and go through the manufacturing, and I couldn't see what they were doing. So it was very, very difficult to link what I was doing on the computer and they were doing in real life, and it was
Okay, so tell us about how was your experience like being in California for like so long time and stuff?
It was only a week. The conference was 5 days.
Okay.
Of course, we had the hassle of getting there and the random inspections, all of that. And when we got there, we had of course, it was very close to Disneyland. And the day after we won, we just went. And it was it was really fun.
Okay, so did you believe that you won and you will win?
Honestly, we had no idea. Like, we tried so hard, and we tried our best to not think about it after we presented. It was
okay. Okay, tell me about like your opponents in the competition.
So so the competition was split into two categories, one for undergrads and one for graduate students. And so but when we presented, it was everybody together. And so we saw the projects for the graduate students, and they had things like remotely controlled robotic arms and very, very impressive things that we saw. And we were like, it's one of the undergraduate teams had a robot that walked in on the ground and in water. It could like collect stuff from the water and things like that. So it was definitely very intimidating to see projects like that around you. So.
Okay. What are your future plans?
Right now is to just get through this semester and hopefully later probably pursue a master's or a PhD.
Okay. Thank you, Mustafa Sidi. That's all we have for you today. I'm your host Rana Abdel Wahab, and thank you for joining us.